Hello and welcome to Outrageous Wellness. My name is Kristine Erickson. I am a psychologist, a personal trainer, a wellness coach, uh, and I do some other things too. This is Outrageous Wellness. We're into December now, so we're heading towards the winter solstice and all that fun stuff, and my birthday. And so woohoo! And I am here with Charlotte and Kelsey. Please introduce yourselves.
Hey, I'm Charlotte, and I am a business person, a Reiki master, and spiritual explorer.
Hey, I'm Kelsey, and I am an average human being. No, I'm just kidding. I am a yoga instructor. I am recently departed from the education system. I now am a technical editor and writer. What else do I do? I sometimes read some tarot. I like to think I'm an aspiring expert of all things occult, and that was the longest intro I've ever given. So I'm going to shut up now.
That was very nice. Thank you very much.
That was above average, by the way.
Yeah. I do tarot.
You exceeded expectations.
Thank you.
Oh.
I just had my annual evaluation. Went great. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to get. I just started at this company. I don't know if these people like me. We're going to find out. Turns out they enjoy my presence. So we are
nice.
We are living, benefits.
Congratulations. That's great.
Thank you.
Yeah. Last time we were here, we started talking about boundaries, which, I think that's a big deal, especially around this time of year. So that's what we were going to talk about again, in I guess a more formal way, because it was sort of one of those, we need to talk about boundaries because some of us have some issues with that. And how is that going, Kelsey? It's going to
be a struggle every day, but I'm starting to realize it's funny because when you start to, I feel like boundaries are interesting because you kind of have to be vulnerable with that while still being strong. And it's like this balance of here's where I'm at. Here's what I can do with this. And this is what I can't execute this because of X, Y, and Z. So I recently had to tell somebody something and just be like, I haven't gotten to that, not because I don't want to, but because I have a whole lot of other things on my plate. And this is X, Y, and Z. I'm going to get this to you by 24 hours from now. But I need you to know I'm very overwhelmed. So it's okay to send me a reminder. Like, it's just like, I feel like that communication has been really helpful with people, but people that kind of just suck.
You're breaking up a little bit.
Oh no.
Breaking it.
Am I back in action?
Now you're back. Yes.
Beautiful. I was saying that just sometimes you get those rogue people that don't always respect your vulnerability and your boundaries. And I think it was Brene Brown I heard say that's just chicken shit and you have to treat it like chicken shit. Move past it, realize, that person got my vulnerability. And now they're just, if they can't be accepting of my vulnerability, I'm going to set a firm boundary and they're going to have to respect that.
Mm-hmm. Well, one thing that's helpful is to think about there being different types of boundaries, right? So boundaries is like such a big thing, and I remember when I was younger, I had no idea I didn't know what a boundary was. I mean, I didn't know that you could have boundaries. I think a lot of us are like that, and I think that younger people now sort of grew up learning about, because we started talking about boundaries in terms of physical boundaries, like very clearly, like your body is your body. You don't let strangers touch. And this is something that we talk about with little kids now, as they grow up. And it's a safety thing. So there's this one aspect of boundaries that is really clear, and we let kids know loud and clear that, people shouldn't be touching you. It's a safety issue. So there's physical boundaries like my body, my house, my car, my computer, and so on. And I think that's clear. That's a pretty clear type of boundary. But then there are mental boundaries, my thoughts. Some people want to control how people think, and that's not right. I'm sure you all come up against that in the past.
Yeah, that's a big one that I've really been focusing on lately. I've gotten into this kind of this like both things can be true is one of my favorite sayings lately. And also like I think the political environment has really shown me how, we live in a country that's pretty rare. Like we have free speech, we have all these rights, and we get to think what we want to think. And I think people on both sides of politics are concerned right now that people are trying to limit that, whether it's my God should be your God, or I want to say this, I should be allowed to say this, whatever it is. And I'm really sort of getting very comfortable lately with kind of, I don't need to do something because someone's got a different opinion, or someone's grouchy about something. Or I think for so long I was in, and I don't think it's people pleasing, I think it's more like a fix it. I feel like I'm like a fix it person. So if I'm like, oh, hey, how's your day? And someone's like, terrible. I'm like, oh God, let me sit down and like help you out with that. Whereas before I'm like, I'd be sitting there all day, and now I'm just kind of like, cool, you be you.
Yeah.
You be in that space. And it reminds me of what we were talking about for the holidays and setting boundaries, going into situations where I'm just going to let people be who they are. And my boundary is with my own energy and my own attitude. And just, I'm not going to run into that fix it mode, or that, oh, I wish that person didn't think that way, and let me help them think this way because I think they'll be happier, or whatever it is. So that's a boundary I'm working on for this holiday. And I'm going to see how well I can set my energetic boundaries so that I am not impacted by negativity or things that don't suit me right now. And, those things change, but that's who I am right now. I just want things to be easy and good and, okay.
Yeah, and it's great when you're having interactions with somebody who also has good, firm boundaries, and you're both respectful of each other's boundaries, and then you can talk about things, subjects that you don't necessarily agree on, but it's okay because you're both respecting each other's boundaries, and it's like, okay, that's interesting, and
Oh my God, it's magical.
Like you don't have to like have this big blow up, like,
yeah,
you're wrong, you don't know what you're talking about,
friendship
shit. It doesn't go there. It really doesn't.
in my friendships where I feel like I'm like, I know that person respects my boundaries, and I know that I can just come to them and be like, I feel like dog shit tonight. I literally can't. I've already said chicken shit this time around. So we're just going to keep going with the animal shit. Sorry about this. But I have friends where I can say that to them, and they're very respectful of the fact of like, okay, Kelsey needs to like recharge. She's not feeling well. Like, I understand that. I respect it. I'm not going to push her to come out with me, even though we made plans. But then I have other friends where it's like, it's interesting, and that just going in that space where you're around people who respect boundaries. Like, I'll have friends who don't respect boundaries. And so when I come to them with stuff like that, they take it as like a personal attack. And I'm starting to realize like that whole people pleasing thing, not that you were talking about that, Charlotte, but when you said people pleasing, it reminded me of that. I used to think that like, they're taking this as a personal attack, so I can't respect my own needs right now in this moment. Like, I would get headaches all the time when I was a teenager, and my friends couldn't respect that, or like my early 20s. And so I would push through what I'm not sure if they were migraines or not, just so I could prevent people from feeling like it was a personal attack on them. So it's very interesting to kind of like navigate people who are very respectful of your needs and like your boundaries and what you're setting, and then also to navigate people who are not respectful, and to realize, oh wow, these are very different relationships I'm navigating. And then learning to still set boundaries in the ones that where people don't always understand it's not a personal attack.
Yeah. And and there's emotional boundaries is another type of boundary, or another area where it can be hard to set boundaries. People want you to feel a certain way, and you don't feel that way, and and like you said, they take it, they're offended by it almost. I think people run into that. People who suffer from depression, for example, I think probably run into that more often than people, who don't have those kinds of issues, and where, just snap out of it. Like, what's wrong with you? And you should be happy. It's the holiday season, so smile, or not respecting the fact that maybe this is a really hard time of year for you. Like, they're happy, so you should be happy. And not respecting that, and you just having to and be the one who says, listen, you do you. That's great that you're enjoying this, but I really need to step back and take a few moments, because that's not how I'm experiencing this time of year. So.
I think emotional boundaries are very interesting for me, and I've noticed that, especially wedding planning, because when I've been working like with other people on their weddings, I've always just wanted to see them be excited. And I just like, if you're happy, I'm happy. Like all is what it needs to be. But I'm now realizing that that's not everybody else's perspective when I'm planning. And so I will say something that's like, look how excited I am for this thing that I'm stoked about. And I'm just expecting people, because that's the way I was, to be like, I'm so excited for you. Congrats. But that is not the response I get 50% of the time. And so I think I've literally gotten to this point where I tell people, I'm going to share something with you about my wedding. If I share it with you, I don't want you to rain on it. I don't want you to be mean about it. I don't even want you to share it with anybody else. I'm just telling you so that way it can be a special moment between us and you can be excited with me. And some people will say I can do that, and other people say I can't. And I'm like, that's fine. I appreciate you setting that boundary after I set this boundary, because this is my wedding and you are not financially invested in it.
And it's funny, that reminds me of, I saw something, and I'm not a parent, so I don't know this, but I do know a lot of parents who've expressed this to me. And they, it's like, well, you're a parent of three children. They're like, actually, I'm three different parents of three children. And what they're saying is that they are parenting different people. It's what you're saying, Kelsey, is, you're reading your friends. And I mean, that's really the cool part about emotional boundaries, and maybe, why we hold on to our friendships for so long, because that is a dance that each one of us does with our friend, our multiple friends. It's like, the person you can kind of go to, and they're going to be all so excited and, blah, 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 and everything you want. And then, the person that you can go to when you're in a really like mood, and you can just be like, rah, and they're like, rah. It's like, it's really interesting how, how we navigate these emotional boundaries, as well as setting them and recognizing them in others.
Yeah. And also to not take on other people's emotional boundaries. That's important too. And to not let people manipulate you through, guilt and shame, because that's a big emotional boundary that people will cross if they're not in a healthy place.
I was raised by a very Southern family, and so there's a lot of guilt and a lot of shame sometimes if you're in a Southern family. And I think I like to tell my friends when they're starting to feel that, I'm always like, is that about you? Like, is that a you thing? Is the guilt you're feeling? Do you feel guilty about this? Because usually right away I can say yes or no if somebody's kind of coming at me and making me feel shame and guilt. Very particularly like with my invitations, like making sure that everything was written super formally for everybody. But I was kind of like, I don't feel guilty if the female's name is first. I kind of like it. I think that's fun. I think let's shake it up. And I was getting a little backlash on that. And it was just, it's like, do I actually feel guilty about this? And I don't feel shame about it either.
No,
So,
you didn't.
Yeah. So it's interesting because it's almost like you have to have that conversation with yourself. What did you say last week, Charlotte? You called it I set boundaries with myself. And so like, am I going to accept this guilt and shame or am I not? And talking to myself in that way.
Right. The self-talk boundaries are really important. How we talk to ourselves is just as important as how we talk to, someone else, and just as important as the way we allow people to talk to us. I do think we forget that a lot. Self-talk is huge, and it's part of the energetic boundaries that you can deploy to really, get yourself into a wellness mindset, I think.
Yeah, we can be really mean to ourselves. We really can. It's not good. And learning how to change that self-talk is huge. It's amazing. It's amazing to be able to do that. So now let me just go ahead.
I was just gonna say I've started doing the Snoop Dogg affirmations to help me really work on that.
Snoop. I love Snoop.
He's amazing. I invited him to my wedding. I've heard nothing.
Oh my God. Is he going? I really hope he is.
You really want a celebrity there on your wedding day? I was like, if I'm going to have a good time with Snoop Dogg, and it's not like the likelihood is less than the lottery. Still, Snoop Dogg.
He's amazing. I love him. I love that you love him, Kelsey.
He's amazing. I'm obsessed with Snoop Dogg. He's adorable. I love him so much. But yes, I'm sorry. But that was what I was going to say. The affirmations are helping me. I'll even say them out loud at work, especially where I'm like, I'm not stressed. I am successful. I can do this.
So at my wedding, we had, I guess she used to be kind of a celebrity, but my Aunt Jane was this is a funny story. I just have to tell the story real quick since we're talking about weddings anyway and celebrities. Jane Brody, who's my aunt, and she's been a writer for the New York Times for decades, and she's written some books and stuff like that. And so she was at my wedding, but I didn't tell my my future mother-in-law that she was going to be there because I knew that she would be, she, like fangirl, right? Would and poor Aunt Jane would not have been able to enjoy the wedding. And I was right, because after the wedding was over and everybody had gone, and we'd been done our honeymoon and come back, and it was like happened to be in conversation. She found out that Jane was at the wedding and she was not introduced to her. Like, I was like, I'm glad. It was a big, that was crazy. So anyway, so that's my mini celebrity story.
That's funny.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
No one can hear me say, oh no, because my mic was off, but I definitely let out a no.
We had another celebrity at our wedding. Well, he wasn't a celebrity at the time, but my husband's cousin, Matteo Garoni, is now a kind of a big deal Italian film director, and he actually had a video camera at our wedding. And he videotaped the wedding. So I guess we have like an original Matteo Garrone production.
Oh, how
So funny,
fun.
isn't it? That's hilarious.
That's really fun.
I thought that was funny. Anyway, that was way off topic. Fourth type of boundary is that I wanted to mention is spiritual boundaries. And I guess that can get mixed up into some of the other boundaries, but I think it is clearly especially when you have families that, different people believe different things, and, people want to convince you that what you believe isn't correct. And you're like, well, that's not up for discussion, my beliefs.
Yeah, I am extremely fortunate that I don't come from I have a few religious family members, but a lot of people are very accepting of where I'm at with my spirituality and how I feel. But I did have one family friend a while ago when I told her I was looking into different religions and trying to figure out what I believed in and what all that meant. Kind of really, really spoke down to me about a big faith in this country that since I'm not believing that specific faith, that I'm going to go to hell. And it was a person I did not expect any of that to come from, because she had been traveling all over the world. She had seen all of these religions. And so I really thought it was going to be a safe situation to communicate this with her. And it ended up really not being. And I think if you're talking to somebody about your spirituality and you start to feel guilt and shame, I always feel like that is not, like, guilt and shame don't belong in what you believe in terms of spirituality.
Well, it shouldn't be part of your spirituality, but then that's my opinion.
It's also
How would the patriarchy control you though if it didn't?
Ooh, Charlotte coming in hot.
Yeah, if it didn't use shame and guilt.
She said, listen here.
We're going to talk to you about what you should and shouldn't do and shouldn't believe.
Guilt is like, I just don't think it belongs. I don't really think, I think reading over the actual teachings of Jesus, because I've actually gone through, I've read the Bible, I've done the thing, I've been that into it all front to back. It's like, I don't really think Jesus ever really wanted us to feel that kind of guilt or shame. Like, there's a lot of aspects in that I think when it comes in and people bring that up, I'm like, but that's not what was said. So I read it.
Yeah.
I read it.
That might be a fun topic to talk about too at some point on one of these. Yes, especially with Christmas coming up, and I'm going to be celebrating Yule, which is winter solstice, and then my birthday is Christmas Eve, so we'll be celebrating that, and then Christmas Day, my niece will be here, and so we're gonna do some present openings and stuff like that. But we're not really celebrating Christmas, we're celebrating the return of the sun. So yeah, it's kind of interesting how it's not everybody has to do it the way that most people do it. I guess we're going to do it different.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I remember when I was first getting into sort of the angel stuff, and I was talking to one of my siblings, and I was like, oh my gosh, I mean, I really believe that angels are real. And we all grew up Catholic. And my sibling was like, well, yeah, I mean, that's what we were taught. And I was like, what do you mean? He was like, well, they talk about angels and there were angels everywhere. I remember at Christmas, it was like all the angels, hark the herald angels sing. I was like, yeah, but I thought it was kind of like the same thing, like the whole package, like Noah's Ark, it was like a nice story. Like I never really, even as a child, I never integrated that it was real somehow. I just thought it was so interesting that we had the same upbringing and yet we were coming at it from two different ways. I do have to say that the season, I feel the collective energy around Christmas is special for me. It's like there's something about it, and it's everything. It's Santa at the Thanksgiving Day parade at the end, on Fifth Avenue, all the way to the angel songs and, the Peanuts, whatever. And I guess religious throwback things, but I don't know, from like a joyful standpoint, I do appreciate the energy at that. And the same time, I feel the same way that you do, Kristine. It's really interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's a very cool time of year. It really is. It's a time of year that I feel like people come together in a way that they don't come together at other times. So that's very cool. And having that, that hope and joy and the hope for peace,
Yeah,
which
peace is big.
people don't, which you don't get other times of the year. And then all of a sudden at Christmas time, everybody's all about Prince of Peace. And it's like, oh, now you're all into the peace thing for one day. For you. I'm sorry.
What does Jake say? My fiance always says everybody's 2% nicer around this time of year.
Yes.
Everybody feel that 2%.
Yeah.
That's a good way to look at it.
Everybody's 2% nicer, but he is it's funny because he's not very religious, and he's not religious at all, and he loves Christmas. And I think there is something about that energy. I think you're right, just like the lights and the 2% nicerness. He just seems to really appreciate. I don't know what that is, but it's something kind of palpable about maybe just the season of giving.
Mm-hmm. And I think that this time of year, people put on their best face, and hopefully that's their authentic face, that then the mask kind of slips back on afterwards, and we descend back into our ego selves. But but you're right, it is a special time of year, and it's also a time for boundaries, right? So knowing your limits and not doing too much. I've gotten into the practice of starting my decorating early so that I can take my time. I know I have to make gingerbread cookies. That's a must, because there will be some very upset people if I don't. So do either of you have problems with issues this time of year with being asked to do too much or being expected to do things that you don't want to do or aren't comfortable doing?
I'm sorry, I'm laughing at my strategy in this because I can foresee what I will be asked. So I always tell people I'm so bad at X thing. You don't want me to do it. It will be garbage, like as I see it coming up. But I also, my parents are divorced, Jake's parents are divorced, and Jake and I ironically always watch Four Christmases this time of year because we just connect with it so much.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the challenge of, and the tightrope that you walk of, how do I go to every single parent's house and not make anybody feel like how do I get that all done in 2 days on Christmas and Christmas Eve, so that way no one feels left out and no one feels like I prioritize someone more than the other. And there is not not a holiday where somebody doesn't feel like they get their feelings hurt. And so it's definitely a challenge to try and navigate. Now, what I did this Thanksgiving was I just kind of took the reins, which if you're able to do that, it's helpful. And I said, I'm going to meet everybody here. I'm only going to 2 locations. So I'm going to be here for dad and here for mom. Jake's family, if you'd like to join us here, you're more than welcome to. Jake, if you need to go, you're more than welcome to do that. But it's hard to do 4 Thanksgivings all on one day. And I'm just not doing it.
Oh, you froze up. Yeah, your computer was like,
I went out.
Yeah, she's not doing that.
But yes, it's definitely good, I think, now to communicate with people and just be strong, knowing that I can't do 4 meals on Thanksgiving. I can't navigate all this. It's unreasonable of me to be asked that.
I think it's also important to set your own expectations too, or to not set your expectations for how it's going to be, because it's never exactly how you imagine it's going to be. There's always something, and maybe everything that turns out to be completely different. And that doesn't mean that it turns out to be this terrible thing. It's just different, right? So that's one thing that I've learned how to do as I've gotten older, and is to, just manage expectations, whether it be for Thanksgiving, whether it be, for Christmas or New Year's or whatever. It's like whatever ends up happening, it's going to be great. No matter who is or isn't able to be there, it's going to be great. So, just don't knock yourself out trying to make it perfect. Just show up and it'll be fine. That's my
really said. Takes a lot of pressure off of people to be like, it has to be. That was one thing my mom always did really well, is she would just kind of say, it's just so and so coming over. We'll figure it out. And she would still be cooking as people were coming in the door, and but she always had that mentality of like, it's okay. Like, it's whatever happens, happens. We're gonna have football on the TV. We're gonna have snacks out. Let's see what happens. So
exactly. Yeah, exactly. And it's going to be fine, because everybody's going to want to pitch in a little bit to help. And what's the saying? Many hands make light work.
Mm-hmm.
Too many cooks spoil the batter, right? Or something like that. So they're both different things, but I just love lots of people around. So
that's the crux of it. It's like being together, right? I mean, at the end of the day, that's really what's important. And that kind of goes back to your original question, Kristine, and what tradition is. And, tradition is somewhat of a boundary, right? Like, we have these family traditions where this is how it is, and this is how every member for the rest of our genealogy, ancestry will do. Like, when I was growing up, Christmas Eve was like the big thing, right? It's so funny. I mean, it is really funny. And, Kelsey, it's amazing. Like, good for you for setting that boundary. That is so hard. When you first get married and trying to figure out like how to do that. And, we did, for many years, we would do one holiday with my family and one holiday with my husband's family. And that's how we did it. We didn't have to do multiples on either side.
yeah.
And then, as time went on too, then we were like, we really just want to spend a holiday by ourselves.
Yeah.
And so, we would alternate. And at the end of the day, it was like, I mean, when you think about the year as a whole, why do we just like prioritize these 2 weekends, right? That seem to be so, like you said, it's very emotional for some people. Like, you chose their house over my house, and it's like, wow, like there's a lot there. And yet I spent 2 weeks with you doing X, and we had the most amazing time. Like, in March. So I don't know. It's very interesting.
It
It's
is.
been
Yeah.
a challenge to say the least. But and then when I was younger and starting to dip my toe into this world, it was much harder to be clear with people. But I think now I'm realizing it once I set that expectation for everybody, it just is what it is. Like, navigate it.
Oh, you are again. Oh my goodness, what's going on?
I don't know, and I'm mad about it.
We need to set some boundaries with this
Look here, internet.
recording. I'm not going to say what system we're using.
But it has been a jerk since we've gotten on.
It really has. It's been crazy. But this has been really good. I really enjoyed this. I feel like we kind of addressed some of the things that we left hanging the last time. So that was awesome. Any final thoughts?
Well, last week we did talk about one interesting thing that Kelsey brought up, and she talked about porous boundaries.
Yeah.
And for someone like me who can definitely tend to be black and white, that was so intriguing to me. And I've just been thinking about it all week. And of course, that led to this idea of like how we talk about situational ethics. I've decided we're going to call it situational boundaries. So it's the idea of, and I think we talked about this a little bit, I am going to hold a contemporary of mine who happens to be male at a different boundary when they're using words to describe, like instead of saying a gal, call me a woman or a person or whatever. But my 75-year-old colleague who I admire and was, a mentor, used gal like left and right. I was like, yeah, gal. And I had someone call me on it like, wait a second, like, what's up with your shifty boundaries there? And I was like, it's kind of situational.
Yeah.
75. That's what they said,
Yeah.
Anyway, it might be a conversation for another day, but I definitely think as we wrap up boundaries that we have to acknowledge the situational and porous boundaries.
There is also, and I really agree with that, the whole porous thing. And it's hard. Like, I'm not doing porous boundaries very well right now at all. I am currently practicing it. So we'll navigate as we move forward. But I wanted to say, like, the one thing I'm used for my boundaries and setting them, it's a mnemonic that my mnemonic. Every time
you want to say something important. What does that mean?
Okay, dear man, and I don't remember what they all mean, so I always go back and reread them every single time. But the first letter means something. I'm trying to say this fast so you guys still get it, because but go look up the Dear Man mnemonic for boundaries. It tells you to be like direct, clear, like all the things. It tells you how to set a boundary, and how to not be too and try to be assertive but not aggressive. I'm a little aggressive sometimes. Try to be assertive. That's more for me than for anybody else.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much, you guys. This is really good. Have a wonderful week. I'm not sure exactly when we'll be back, but hopefully before the end of the month. Yes. Okay. We'll work on that. We'll plan it. So thank you very much. This has been Outrageous Wellness. I'm Kristine Erickson. We are on Spotify and Apple and all that. And we are also now on YouTube. So if you look up Outrageous Wellness on YouTube, we are there. And we will see you next time. Thanks for joining us. Have a great week. Bye-bye.